Welcome, friends, to episode 250. We have actually made it to 250 episodes of Color Magic or Magic Gaming Podcast, where we talk about all types of issues that affect gamers at and away from their gaming tables and computers. I'm your host, PowrDragn, and for 250 episodes, still got my main man, Brian Sonic. How's it going, dude?
250. It doesn't even feel nice. In some ways it does, because I was in a whole different house when we started this, but in a lot of
Same.
ways it doesn't feel right.
That
A
is
lot of
wild
ways
to think about. Our entire, like, you didn't have a dog before we started.
I did not.
like you didn't have a kid in college before we
Did not.
started.
Wild.
Like, a lot changes in 250 episodes.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Oh man. All right. We this is gonna be a packed show. I mean, we got to talk about the Olympics, we've got stuff with Assassin's Creed, we've got companies being bought, we have wizards causing problems, we got all kinds of things in this episode. But before we get into everything, don't forget you can go to patreon.com/colormagic and support the show. We really appreciate it. And want to give a shout out to one of our Patreons. So, Barry Drake, thank you so much for supporting the show. But let's get into this first thing, dude. Secret layers. Again, I wake up, I guess it was Tuesday morning, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to ask people who bought this Monty Python secret layer. Because people seemed excited about it, but
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not a big Monty Python fan, but I'm like, I'm just curious.
I'm out. That's all I had to hear. That can't work with this man anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm like, I'm just curious, to get a feel for how many people went in the queue and bought something that morning. Well, before I could even ask questions, apparently that was the topic of the conversation on Twitter. Everybody was mad because a bunch of people apparently waited in the queue for an hour or two and didn't even get to buy it. Because supposedly, it's depending on who you ask, it was as short as 2 hours, as long as 5 hours. So I'm going to split the difference a little bit and say 3 hours. But let's effectively say it was sold out in roughly 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. Like, we keep having this happen. We saw it with the Fallout. We saw it with the Hatsune Miku stuff. Like, it every time there's at least so far, that there has been a branded, sponsored, partnered IP. And to Wizards' credit, you're signing license deals that people want. But why set up this system that people can't buy it? Like, because they said we're going to go to pre-printed, whatever. Obviously, these numbers are not even close to big enough. They're just not. Like, we talked about it before. Like, my issue is that if somebody clocks in at work at 9 o'clock, they couldn't even take their lunch break to hop in the queue and buy anything because it was already sold out. Like, that's crazy. That's not an unreasonable expectation for a person. You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
not at all.
that's my problem. It's not like I'm saying, okay, they got to be able to buy 10 of them or whatever. It's like, I'm just saying if somebody reasonably wants one, I don't think it's unreal to try to have the quantity last at least a day or 12 hours, maybe half a day. Because in 12 hours, most people have a chance who want one to get in there and get one. I think if you could find the quantity that lasts that long, that's probably fine. But it's also weird from a business perspective. Because I can't imagine any of these licenses they're signing are cheap.
No.
Right? So the goal should be to make the most money as possible off of these. But if you have, according to Twitter, which means there's probably, for every one person who's complaining on Twitter, there's probably 10 more people or 100 more people who were in the queue or maybe just saw it was sold out and didn't even attempt to buy it. Or hell, people that forgot, got into their email, saw the notification or whatever, hopped on and saw it was already sold out, because they didn't get on or check their email till 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. How many more sales could you have gotten? Like, when we talk about layoffs and dollars and whatever, like, hell, at this rate, Secret Lair alone could have been worth a few $100,000 at the end of the year if you could have sold these extra quantities.
And you also talk about how they over communicate. Have they said anything about, because this is like the 4th or 5th time this happened? It's just,
nope, it is not. Other than the initial thing of just like, hey, these are just printed to order, and when they're out, they're out. That's it. It makes no sense.
no.
It literally makes no sense. I'm just like,
And it just feels like I don't. Somebody, I guess, somewhere has set a number, and if we get this, we're good, and we ain't gonna worry about it after that. And it's weird, like it feels like they can make. And obviously, you would rather, you'd rather sell too few and not have any left over than print too many and then get stuck with them. But they are nowhere close to getting stuck with them, so I don't know what's happening. This is
Yeah. I mean, let's say even if there was just 1,000 more people, that's 1,000 units at a minimum. If everybody just bought one, and some people are going to buy 3, they're going to buy 5, whatever. If everybody just bought one, that's another like $30,000 that you didn't make. You just left sitting on the table. And that will now be at least the third time that has happened this year. So that's basically $100,000 plus already that they just left on the table. Which realistically means by the end of the year, Secret Lair could be way more than that. Could be double that. Could be another $250,000 potentially. Probably more, realistically, knowing a bunch of people are going to buy 2 or 3 of stuff. Like, it makes no sense. I'm like, it sucks for your players.
Yeah.
Because again, you're signing these deals because your players are fans of this thing and they want to be able to get the different versions of their favorite
Monty
loser.
Python perfect, knights
Yeah.
and castles and all that stuff. It's just
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But then again, from Wizards' side, like, your goal is to make money. Your goal is to make these licensing deals worth it. Whether you're paying outright money or you're paying a percentage deal, either way, you want to make it worth it for everybody involved. So why not make more? Like, it's so weird. I don't get it. I really don't. Like, it's generally to the point that anytime they have something branded, I haven't even considered getting a queue to buy it because I just don't
Yeah.
there's a realistic chance I'm not even going to get a chance to.
It feels like, why? Because F them, that's why. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
this is what 4 straight drops of people being extremely unhappy, and they just don't seem to care. It's frustrating.
I just don't get it. Even if they would have said, okay, look, these first few, we thought the number was only going to be this many. This is why it sold out so fast. But for the next ones, we're going to print. Hell, I would be okay even if you said, okay, the first, let's say 2,000 or whatever we sell, whatever the number is that they've already printed, those will go out within a couple weeks after this thing closing, whatever. If you're number 2001 on, you'll have to wait 8 weeks or whatever while those get printed and we get them to you, whatever the case is, right? So you get rewarded for being earlier in the queue.
Yeah.
But you can still get it if you just get in later. You just got to wait, right? That could still make the system work. That would be fine. But like, I don't know, man. I feel bad for the people that are genuinely fans of all these properties,
right,
and can't get them because you're excited. You're like, oh, I'm in the queue. I'm number whatever 400 or whatever, blah blah. And you're watching it tick down, and then by the time you get to the front of the line, it's like, oh, sorry, it sold out.
And thing I guess it needs to happen and probably won't because the Magic players. This company keeps kicking us in the balls, and we keep lining up monthly to get kicked in the balls. So
the problem is, though, it's because there's other things that are good. But then when you get this type of thing, it's like, you know what it is? You know what it is for me? I have this thing personally that when I'm ready to give you money, just let me give you my money.
Yeah, I think most people feel that way.
I hate, even when I'm trying to pay bills, if I'm just like, okay, I'm going to pay this bill. And then like your site won't take my credit card for some reason or whatever. I'm just like, damn, man, I just want to pay this. Let me give you my money. Right. I think this is what this feels like. Like, you have people lined up to just hand you fistfuls of dollars and you're just not taking it with no real explanation.
There's a lot that's good, but this is 2 weeks in a row where our lead story has been, what the F is this company doing?
Yeah.
Why are they doing it this way?
Yeah.
This is 2 weeks in a row of just where.
I think the issue too for me is that I'm okay if I disagree with the decision, at least if I can see some logic as to how you got there, right?
Yeah, even if I don't necessarily agree with it, but if I understand where you're coming from, even because like we talk all the time about how like, yeah, okay, this is, it's probably not the best thing necessarily for the customer, but we get that they're trying to make money. This seems like, for second week in a row, it seems like actually making the proper decision would have made you way more money in the long term, and
Exactly.
it's still just no. Screw you guys. Just,
That's the issue. It's just
those of
like
you that can get into the queue, give us your money. F the rest of you.
that's exactly it. It's like the goal is to make money. What you're doing does not make money. Right?
And
So,
you will leave with way more people unhappy with you than are happy
yeah.
with you. And I want to say that hurts you over time, but I guess their experience is that no, really, it hasn't. How many we,
And
we talked
again,
about we talked about
oh,
how
go
many
ahead.
people are quitting Magic, for the 15th time.
Yeah,
If they do this exact same thing, like you said, the Hatsune Miku secret layer, for example,
round the corner. It's coming.
the
It's going to
same
happen
thing's
again.
going to happen again, and people are going to line up and hand them money. So, what is their incentive to improve if people keep lining up and handing them money?
And here's what's interesting about this is I get that you want a little bit of FOMO, right? Like
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It doesn't need to be a quantity that lasts all day, but if it lasts like 12 hours, cool. Then a bunch of people got it. And if you don't get it, all right, you'll make time to make sure you get in the queue and get it next time or whatever. But you reach a point where two things are happening. Like I discussed, there's people like me that have said, like, well, I don't even bother because I know I'm not going to get one.
yeah, that's where I am at this point.
Yeah, I'd rather leave it for people who really absolutely want one and like hopefully you get a chance to get one. I don't want to be in the way. Right. So some number of people like me just aren't even trying. So instead of us having FOMO, we're just like, yeah, whatever. Like we know there's not going to be enough.
Yeah, I love Monty Python, but I knew that there's just no point in even
Yeah.
because I know how many other people do. Like, yeah, there's no way.
Well, then the other part of that though is there's some number of people that are resellers, scalpers, whatever,
Right?
that they're getting into the queue to buy 10 or whatever the max quantity is because they know it's going to be limited.
Yep.
Right. So now you're not getting the FOMO of your players rushing in to get it. You're now encouraging people to just buy as many as you can when you're in there because now the resale value is going to be higher. Right. So it's just not a winning scenario right now for people. So
And for some reason, that seems to be what they want. I don't know why. As you say, it feels like we've passed FOMO to her. Okay, and it's not fear of missing out. It's you should fear your your teeing people off at this point. Wizards should, in theory, have the fear.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's easy to look and say, hey, we printed this much, we sold them all. But I think the other part of the conversation needs to genuinely be, yeah, but when we sold out, we still had 600 people in the queue, 1,000 people in the queue, whatever. Like, how much more could we have made?
And I mean, a couple of those people may actually quit Magic, or they may at least quit trying to buy secret layers.
Oh,
Because
they're definitely going to several each time people quit trying to buy secret layers
yeah,
because they don't want to have to sit at their phone and wait for an hour to be told it's sold out.
yeah, it's no
Like,
fun.
yeah. So, like I said, I just quit. I didn't even try. So we'll see what happens. But let's go ahead and hop into the soapbox because this is an interesting conversation around the Olympics. Now, I've had a few people between the Discord and a live stream I did last week ask me because Olympics is on everybody's mind right now, rightfully so. What do I think the odds are of something like Magic being in the Olympics? And I had to really think about it because there was a point. If you'd have said, I don't know, 20 years ago, I would have probably said, not really. But then we watched the evolution of like, we got basically the X Games stuff, right?
Yeah,
Added the Olympics, skateboarding, snowboarding, BMX, right? Like those are Olympic events now. And then for a little bit, we had stuff like ballroom dancing get brought into the Olympics. And then now we have break dancing, which I thought I didn't even know people were still hardcore breakdancing in enough countries that we could have a
right.
whole thing about it. Right. I thought it was like us, Canada, the UK, a couple of African spots, and that was it. I didn't think that many people were breakdancing. So it shows what I know. But then I started thinking, okay, we're talking about esports maybe being in the Olympics in 8 years or so. So, like, how close are we to card games maybe being in the Olympics? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe, possibly. I don't know, dude. What do you think? Like, is it even
I just
does
would
it
be
seem
amazed.
real?
Not really, because you look at what the numbers are on Twitch, and we did this one day on the podcast, looking where Magic is in comparison to say Call of Duty, Overwatch. At this point, even Overwatch is struggling. It's for something to be on TV or even on, even streaming on the various streaming services, there has to be that visual element that really, because let's be honest, how do we care about swimming? We don't. You can go to
Sure.
swim meet in your hometown anytime you want to. You don't go. We care about swimming
Oh
every
yeah,
4 years because of all compelling stories. Because it's gymnastics, for example, breakdancing. It's something that is visually exciting. Magic just is. Most card games just are not that. And
I mean,
let's
to
be
be
honest.
fair, there are some Olympic events where not a lot really happens. Like, watching the shooting events as an example. There's not a lot happening. I mean, like,
But
you
just
know,
even people like to watch shooting, for whatever reason. It
or in the
doesn't.
Winter Olympics, wherever that one is, where you got to ski for like a quarter mile around the thing, then you come back and you got to shoot the rifle or whatever that thing is. Like, I tried watching that in two different Olympics. Long and
That's
boring.
that's for people like a friend of mine who literally watch events to see if people fall down.
Yeah, fair. That's
There are
fair.
people that are most people rooting for the success. There are people that watch, for some people that watch fail videos. You're watching, hoping somebody face plants. Magic doesn't have that either. Like, oh, they tapped the wrong thing. They made a horrible. We all know what a horrible mistake it is because we watch and play Magic all the time. But it would have to be explained to 99% of the audience at
Oh,
home.
sure, sure.
Whereas if you watch somebody face plant off of the pommel horse, everybody knows what the mistake was. They fell on their face. They're not going to win anything now.
I think for me, it was more like having to think through, are there other games that would be prioritized first that have more international appeal?
That too, because Magic just stopped printing in 3 or 4 different languages, so that's
Yeah.
it's headed the wrong direction in terms of Olympics international appeal.
Yeah, and that's sort of what I was thinking. Like, would potentially, let's say, just picking one, but saying like, would Pokemon be a better option? Like, I don't really know. Again, I'd have to go like research and compare or
Yeah,
whatever, but maybe. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really know. I mean, you get a lot of press because seeing, Pikachu and Bulbasaur or whatever in Olympic gear or whatever be kind of sweet. Yeah,
because
right.
we talked about how for whatever reason Magic just has not had the same penetration into the Chinese market that they had hoped to have, and
Mhm.
without that, how do you make that viable for the Olympics when there's large swaths of the world that will have no interest in watching it?
I mean, I will say that once something becomes eligible for the Olympics, people find a way to start like building a team to practice it and whatever. So like that would play into it on some level. But again, languages and other
Yeah.
stuff like that could be a barrier for different places. I don't really know. I mean,
I just because even though they apparently have taken the vote on esports being allowed, there are a lot of issues that will have to be resolved. For
oh,
example,
absolutely.
one of the most popular ones is Call of Duty, and let's be honest, the plot of just about every Call of Duty game features your white hero mowing down large numbers of brown skinned people. That's a thing that's already being discussed at length, and it would have to be for it to become an Olympic sport. Something has to probably be resolved on that, and I don't know where we. Well, this year's Call of Duty, I think, is it's Gulf War. So again, we're gonna have a bunch of American soldiers mowing down a bunch of brown skinned people.
You know what? I think to your point, I'm just now thinking about it. I think the bigger issue would be a company technically owns the property for the thing you're competing with.
Also, that.
Right? I think that's because now I'm thinking about it. Like I was going through my head really quickly of like every Olympic sport I could think of, but there's nothing that has a single company that owns the activity, right?
Right.
Like in Magic, it's owned by Wizards of the Coast. In video games, even if you had like Tetris or like you're saying Call
Yep.
of Duty or whatever, right? There's a company that owns that thing, and it's not generic. It's not owned by the Olympic Committee like that because even if you're curling, there's like a couple of different companies that make like the
Yeah.
stones and make the brooms or whatever, right? BMX, obviously there's a bunch of different bike manufacturers, right? Like all that. Like you can't have multiple companies make Magic cards. You
No.
can't have multiple companies make Call of Duty, right? So I think that becomes a problem too because then you also then would have the Olympic Committee. somewhat financially invested in that company not going under before the next Olympics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that starts to create a little bit of a gray space too, because, well, if we have all these people training on your thing to make the Olympics happen, and we've taken some other event out to make sure this is a thing, we now need this to still be a thing,
In 4 years.
in the next 4 years or
And as we
whatever.
all know, look at Overwatch League. That went from, hey, everybody's paying millions for a team to whatever happened to Overwatch League in about 2.5 years, 2 years time.
Yeah,
It
that's
cratered really fast.
yeah. So maybe that's the thing. Now I'm thinking about it, keeps it from being a real possibility, because I hadn't thought about it till right now, but maybe because of the ownership of the property, it's not possible. Now, that's not to say they can't work with a bunch of people or company to come up with a game that can be an
Yeah.
Olympic game. Like, and maybe there could be some Olympic card game that way in the future. But I think as far as a game we know now owned by an individual company, probably not. I mean, it would be, I mean, it would be all new territory for the Olympics. I will say that. Like, if it happened, they would probably have a lot of discussions on how to handle it, because it would be very different. So, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because like I said, I hadn't really thought about it till right now and went, yeah, even with Call of Duty, like what do you do if EA doesn't want to play ball, or EA changes how a control element works like the year before the Olympics or whatever, and people have been training on another setup or something, like there's a lot of weird stuff that could happen. So like, yeah, probably not. Probably not. Would be cool, but I'm gonna say probably not. Now that I'm deeper in thought on it, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's too many hurdles to cross to get us there, I think. But let's talk a little bit more about some of those video games, 'cause I think you came across something that was pretty interesting. Well, I have another interesting about businesses, really. So what do you got?
Yeah, we've talked on here a couple of times about this whole controversy going on with Assassin's Creed and whether Yasuke was or was not a samurai. Though at this
Yeah.
point, many historians have weighed in and said that he was a samurai. And the Assassin's Creed subreddit has just said, "F it, if you come in there talking about Yasuke wasn't a samurai, insta ban." They're not dealing with it because nobody is coming in here. These aren't historians coming in here in good faith debating that these are racists coming in to be just a pain, basically. And people are tired of hearing it. So that's insta ban on the Assassin's Creed subreddit. And I say good for them, because that's, it's been going on for months now. And again, it's not something that's happening. It's a good faith argument. It's any more than the people arguing about Aragorn being black were making a good faith argument, or the people that Gamergate was never about ethics in journalism.
Yeah, yeah.
It
I
really
mean,
was.
let's give a slow clap for Reddit, just for
Right.
because people want to bag on Reddit. A lot of bad stuff goes down there, but hey,
But this is
credit for
one
doing the
where,
right thing. You know, and we talked about this a little bit before the show. Like, I've had similar things happen in other spaces too, where people are still coming in with this old talking point that's 2 months old, 3 months old, and eventually you just say, like, dude, we're done. We are not talking
yeah,
about this anymore, right? Like, shut up or get the ban hammer, right? We're just
right.
not dealing with it. You don't want to be a moderator coming back to the same conversation you had to deal with,
Yeah.
3 months ago,
When it
like
just
deleting it.
goes in
Yeah,
a circle.
it's
And
like,
even more so when it's obviously racist. It's just like,
absolutely.
why put anybody through this?
And it's going to be the same people hopping in
Same.
with their same side of the argument, saying the same things. Just somebody spun it up with slightly different wording,
Yeah.
and you're gonna have the same
And
conversation again.
And as Ubisoft has already said, Assassin's Creed has never pretended it was a documentary. If the
Very
alien
true.
technology and the people falling off of 5-story buildings and bringing their fall with a bale of hay didn't clue you in, it's a video game. It's meant to be fun. It is not supposed to be a historical
I
document.
mean, to be fair, we did see Rikishi fall from like 2 stories into a bale of hay in the back of a truck. So, like, 2 stories is doable.
And again, no assassin has all the padding that Rikishi
That's
has.
also true. Rikishi was a big man. He
And
he was
before,
definitely rocking big back season for real. Like,
right. And before he did that, he had them call his wife and be like, "Hey, in case he just wanted to say, in case this doesn't work out, to tell him and then you tell her and the kids, that I love them." But
Dude, for real, like sidetrack when that happened, I for real was like in a little bit of disbelief that they even let him do it.
he said, when you're in a cage match with like Undertaker and I think with Triple H, I want to say was in that one, and so you got to ask yourself, as Rikishi, what are you gonna do that people are gonna remember? And I said, okay, I'm going off the cage. He got
I
to.
mean, I guess I like he's a big dude to throw off the cage. Because dude, also like if you miss and you hit the
Oh
side
yeah.
of the truck,
Oh
like
yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
god, like your margin
Potential.
for error is like 8 inches on either side. That's all he
Right.
had going. It was not a lot. That was crazy. But yeah, to your point, there's a lot of made up stuff in Assassin's Creed already. Like to just
Yeah.
be upset about this point is kind of silly. Kind of silly, which is like, don't get me wrong, there's probably some number of people, and we talked about this, a few weeks ago, that genuinely did want it to be a Japanese main character. And that's a real discussion to
And I
have.
believe the ninja is Japanese.
Oh, okay, well then, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
there is already a Japanese main character, and they just decided because hey, since we have this incredible story of a black samurai, I knew nothing about this before this started. This has
Yeah.
been a what did I learn on a pretty much weekly basis ever since this game was announced. So I've learned a lot. Other people have. It's been a great experience. I'm actually glad they did it. And yeah, people that are just it, in almost every other game, the main character has been somebody that's been completely made up. I think it's the first time they've had an actual. While you encounter historical characters, like if you're in the French Revolution, you're gonna run into Marie Antoinette or whatever. If it's set during the American Revolution, you'll run into George Washington. I think this is the first time when the historical character has actually been one of the game's main characters.
That's
It
a
may
good
be the
point.
last with all this backlash, but
That's also true. They may never want to do it again. That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective. But yeah, you've kind of had a made up character as the lead character.
yeah.
All right. Well, hell, now you got me thinking about stuff. Like, I'm just like, man, I hadn't thought about that argument. Now I'm like, yeah, I think you're right. So, yeah, okay. So, we talk a lot about just internet companies costing people jobs because everybody's buying different things and people keep getting fired and released. And for better or worse, we're not going to get to stop it. It's a thing.
Yeah.
But I saw a story earlier today, actually, about Hot Ones, the show with Sean Evans, where he brings on celebrities and try to do the 10 wings of death or whatever it is while
Yep.
he answered different interview questions. Super popular show. I mean, they've got their own branded hot sauces now. They've got like chicken wings in the store. They've got all this merch. Right. So the show is doing quite well, as it turns out. But this is going to be convoluted. So you're going to have to follow me here as a listener. I'm going to do the best to explain this. But one of the issues I have is that they're trying to sell the show off because Hot Ones is part of the First We Feast branding, right? Different shows about food. And they're trying to sell that off, but they're having trouble because, rightfully so, I think from what it sounds like, some of the buyers are concerned that really without Sean Evans, I don't know if the show works, right? If they can't sign him to at least a 3-year deal, I would assume. Well, if they buy it and 6 months later he decides to quit and go do his own thing, a very large number of people are going to go follow him, and the show's not going to feel the same without him. So that's making it hard to sell. But why is that even being sold in the first place? Well, it's because BuzzFeed has a huge amount of debt, and they're selling off some of their brands to pay off the debt. Now, my surprise was, wow, BuzzFeed owns Hot Ones and First We Feast. I didn't know that was a thing. Well, it turns out they didn't even really own them to begin with. It's because Complex owned them, which I was like, Complex, the guys used to do like the hip hop articles and stuff. Like, okay, I don't know how they got to own them, but they had
The
them.
internet, man, all these mergers are constantly happening, and you blink, you miss 3 mergers. It's
Oh, yeah.
insane.
So then what was even crazier is BuzzFeed decided to separate off the First We Feast stuff from Complex and just sell Complex, which actually they got a decent amount of money for. I saw the number I saw was $109 million, less than I thought but also complex isn't what it once was. So I guess that's a reasonable number. So
Bro,
had they
there
sold,
are so many mergers as an example. I think I applied for a site, and as I was going through the onboarding, I realized I had written for the site before.
oh,
It had been so long ago and under different ownership, I had completely forget. Like, wait, all of this. Oh yeah, I did do a couple of things for them back probably 10, 15 years ago. Okay.
that's funny. But yeah, like that whole chain of just finding out, like one, Complex was even sold, and then two, that they were even owned by BuzzFeed, and then that BuzzFeed owns Hot Ones. I was just like, when did all this happen? And this is like, people forget BuzzFeed is so big. They owned a lot of brands. Like we were talking about, they used to own the Try Guys stuff, but apparently they didn't want to pay them anymore. So the hot Try Guys just banked on themselves, hired some people, and then they went and started filming their own stuff, which they're doing great.
Yeah.
Well, three of them. One of them had some personal issues that they had to cut loose from the brand. So now there's just three Try Guys. But the ones still remaining are doing all right. But yeah, it's just interesting how all this stuff happens when we talk about like why are these people constantly let go from all these things? It's because of stuff like this, right? When these companies buy another company, well, they don't need two or three customer service teams, right?
That
Some,
sounds like BuzzFeed bought a little more than what they could,
oh
handle.
yeah,
And probably didn't count on the Try Guys leaving. They,
oh yeah, yeah, stuff like that for sure. From
if that
different,
happens to you a couple of times, then you're in a hole.
yeah, because you lose a lot of revenue, right? And maybe people dealing with BuzzFeed are also aware of that. Like, hey, you've had this happen before,
Yeah.
where some people left and your remaining brand wasn't worth a whole lot, right? So I mean, credit, it does mean that Hot Ones is probably going to make more money on a sale because,
Yeah.
you got to negotiate and whatever. And Sean Evans probably makes extra money, and that's awesome. But yeah, it's a weird thing to think about that, stuff like that can effectively block sales sometimes, right? Because if you lose the host, what do you got left? It's a neat concept,
Yeah.
but it's other people are trying that concept right now and they're not catching fire. Like there's
Right.
something about him and how he handles it and the relationship and how he talks the celebrities through their pain basically that they're going through. Like there's an
Yeah.
endearing quality to just him that you'd have to go through probably 1,000 auditions to find the next Sean Evans.
Yeah.
And like they're out there, but are you going to find the right person? So interesting thing though.
And you got to find it before the other internet company does.
Yep. But I think to your point though, right? These mergers happen a lot. When you see people getting released, you're like, how did this happen? How's it like stuff like this, where companies are buying another company that already bought two other companies or whatever, and each level jobs are being dissolved because you only need to bring over like 10% of your customer service team or 10% of your PR team or whatever, right? You're not going to need double the number of PR people or social media managers or whatever. It's just not a thing.
All these corporate marriages, before you know it, you're your own grandpa.
Yeah, in some cases, I mean, like you're saying, it comes full circle where you applied for a spot you'd already even worked for. Like it's weird, but that's the world we live in, unfortunately. But anyway, let's get into some different topics here because these are very interesting this week. So here's one we haven't talked about in probably a good 6 to 9 months, but Amazon's still not making money on Twitch.
Yeah, we hadn't talked about it in 6 months, and nothing has changed
Yeah.
in terms of them still not making money.
So this is weird, right? Because we've talked about they've cut off the overpriced stuff they were paying for in the small countries where it wouldn't make any money, right? They've changed how much they're making on subscriptions, right? They've changed how they're doing ad revenue. Like they've seemingly made a lot of changes that should, on some level, be making them at least closer to profitable, but it sounds like it's still not there.
Because they still if we're to believe Doctor Disrespect, and I don't think Amazon has denied it, didn't he get paid his full contract before getting cut loose?
Sounds like he did.
Yeah, so that's money absolutely down the drain.
Hell, there's multiple big contracts I paid to people that were questionable at best.
Well, I
I,
mean, when
I
Ninja goes to Mixer, He gets paid a fat amount for Mixer to go bankrupt, and then now Twitch has to overpay him not to sit at home like a former WCW wrestler
Yep.
and just get paid. So they had to overpay to get him back out there.
But here's the weird thing, right? Now that we start seeing that Twitch still isn't profitable, whatever, like, is it even worth it to pay somebody a $20 million contract or whatever? Like,
You
if
wouldn't
even
think so.
because if even the money they're bringing you doesn't make you profitable, how does paying out another $20 million help the problem? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand the business math there.
And I think they are trying to get away from that, but until these contracts expire,
Well, yeah, some of them were
that's
2 and 3 year deals, so
yeah,
you still got to ride them
those
out.
they're still on the books. And again, I think Dr. Disrespect had just re-signed his not that long ago. So he's in the beginning or the middle of a contract where it could be another 2 or 3 years. You're paying him to hell, possibly go to jail. We don't know.
I would like to think on some level you had a whatever they call the morality clause or whatever, or behavior clauses. Because, like,
But when you go into court, that it's like how much do you want to pay in legal fees? Because obviously he probably had enough
sure,
money to hire a
sure.
decent lawyer. Then they'd have had to hire an equally good lawyer. And at some point, I think probably you
I'm
just
just
got to
saying
let it
we've seen
go.
NFL players with behavior clauses. So,
But
like
thing is, did Twitch consider that? We don't
oh,
know
that's
because
the
this
real
is
question. Yeah, I don't know. Like it's a weird thing to think about. This is really the OG, right, of game streaming. And they've been around at this point. Hell, are we coming up on nearly 20 years they've been doing what they've been doing?
you got to
Because
remember
yeah,
the
yeah,
NFL didn't start out with those contracts. They had to learn
for
over
sure.
time that hey, football players be getting arrested. They be getting
Yep.
domestic violence things. So
Hey,
okay, now we gotta. So
our
maybe
coach.
Twitch had to do that learning too.
Hey, them coaches, was it Herman Moore or whatever, told people like, ain't nothing good gonna happen after midnight. Like you don't need to be out late and you don't hit send on social media. Like them are the two things he tells everybody, right?
And also the rule of one. You can only sit in one car at a time,
Yep.
so you don't really need 30 of them. You can
Yep.
only sleep in one house at a time. What do you
Those
need? You can wear more than one watch, but it looks kind of crazy. You
that's
know,
true. It does look a little crazy.
some people do it because some people like looking like Gomez Adams, for the young people or the old people that would get that reference.
Man, speaking of Olympics and clocks, like, man, Flavor Flav, he has just become one of the best humans on the planet. Like, fully supporting the women's water polo stuff to the point that he's there training with them and everything else, like helping pay for some of the supply, like supported the whole team through training up through the Olympics. Like, he apparently plays like 14 instruments or something, I found out. Like, dude's randomly in the Olympic Village, like playing classic piano for people to entertain them or whatever. And then supposedly, I meant to follow up on this yesterday and I didn't, but apparently he saved Red Lobster with all the stuff that was going on. He just, yeah, just like invested in them and bought up stock or whatever. So like Red Lobster's good to go still, supposedly because of Flavor Flav. I'm like, this dude got sober and just became, yeah, got sober and just became like a model human. Like, who knew? But yeah, anyway, on this Amazon, I know as a sidetrack, but hey, there you go. Something you probably didn't know before. Now, when we were talking about this, we did hit a reasonable thing because my question was how long until Amazon cuts Twitch loose officially and just says, like, okay, we spent the money we're going to spend. You're on your own. If y'all can figure it out, cool. But you reminded me that, hey, they are starting to bring over some games now. And if Amazon is starting to buy licenses for games that they're going to try to distribute or whatever, if you have the platform
Yeah, that's
to
got to
put
be
in
part of
front of
their
people,
advertisement. It's like, hey, disguised toast or whoever,
yeah,
would you like to play New World? Hey, for this much money, would you like to play New World, Throne of Liberty, etc., etc.?
yeah, but I'm thinking like, how many creators do you go to? You just set a budget, say $10,000 or whatever, and you just go find a bunch of creators and say, hey, if you can give me 20 hours of gameplay on whatever that game was we covered last week that they're bringing over from Korea or whatever, right?
I think that's the Throne of Liberty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. So like, we'll give you $500, right? You can give us 20 hours this week just playing our new game or whatever. Like, if you get that in front of us, it doesn't even have to be the biggest creators. You just get like the mid tier. Like,
Yeah,
you
if you
could
get
get,
somebody that's well respected in that, I think it's an MMO. So you get somebody that's well
yeah,
respected in the MMO space, and they are willing to, and maybe they enjoy it. If they enjoy it,
exactly.
and they tell all their fans that they enjoy it, there you go. Because I mean, it's a very successful game. So apparently, people in is it South Korea, I believe, seem to
Yep.
like it. So
So that's kind of my thing. Like, if they're willing to look at it as, hey, this is going to be our advertising vehicle for these projects we're bringing over, then maybe it's still worth it to them. Even if it's losing a little money, it becomes a loss leader so you can get more people to buy the video games and whatever, and still has a point to it. Now, if we're still doing this 2 or 3 years from now and those games aren't catching on in the Western society, then I don't know what the hell you do, because now you've kind of done
now
everything you
you
can do
probably
with
do
Twitch.
cut it loose at that point.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Or maybe they figure because Amazon has, as the saying goes, more money than God, that if they take enough and shoot enough 3-pointers, they'll eventually hit one of them and profit.
Well, you know, like how it is at some companies. If you got at least the right people in your pocket and they believe in you enough, like, you get a lot of leeway. So maybe they have the right people that favor them. Now, there is something interesting here because we had talked about, Chat GPT and how it was going to affect things and it being integrated into stuff. And of course, people using OpenAI for a billion different things. Well, with all that happening, it turns out OpenAI might actually be broke by the end of the year. They're saying potentially $5 billion worth of losses before we get to the end of the year.
That's a lot. That's
That's because I really, when they said, "Oh yeah, they're struggling," I thought the number was going to be somewhere between like 500 million and 1 billion, maybe. And like, to hear it's 5 billion, I was like,
it's crazy enough to be like, oh, it'll probably only be 500 million that they lost, but
yeah,
for
yeah,
it to
yeah.
be five, yeah, it's
But then I started thinking, like, how do you get to this? And it's like, well, if lots of people are using it, we already know that various levels of AI use a lot of energy, right? A lot of servers, a lot of power. So I'm sure they had a bunch of people invest in a bunch of machinery, bunch of, microchips and different stuff so you can operate all this stuff. But if nobody's paying for it and a bunch of people are getting it for free and it's integrated into a bunch of things for basically free, where does the money come from? Right. And on top of that, pretty much everything I own or every website I use, I feel like, has some level of AI that they're working on or creating or have some proprietary thing. Hell, even Google and Android's got one. I think Samsung's got one now that they're working with. Hell, even Amazon has one. Has a weird, really basic name too. I just saw that last night. Like, they've got something. So now you're to the point, like, how many people are even going to need, particularly specifically, Chat GPT in the future?
yeah.
Like, I assume some level of it people will still need, but they won't need it to the level of integration I think folks were expecting them to need it.
Yeah, because as soon as they figured out, hey, wait, this can write my paper for you, well, there's a software where they can check and see if this
Yep.
paper was written by a robot.
But we've also seen that the machine learning of these things is not as advanced as we thought it was going to be. Like,
Right. Well, all the stories we were hearing, like, oh my God, Skynet is here, is how it's being reported largely in the tech space. And
yeah, and don't get me wrong, I do believe every day we look at, you know, generative learning, we look and say, this is the worst it's going to be. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, every day is the worst it's going to be moving forward. So it's only going to get better. But this week alone, I've had multiple examples where I went to look something up because I was pretty sure two parts don't work together. And it tells me, like, oh no, these absolutely do work together. And what it's explaining matches my knowledge of why it doesn't work together. So then I went and asked some other people and they're like, yeah, those don't work together. And I'm like, oh, well, that's weird. And I've seen multiple examples where you ask it about a thing and what comes back is like, nope, that's not accurate. I keep doing these tests where I'm asking it questions about magic stuff that I know are 100% true and verifiable. You can even go look at even stuff prior to like 2016, because that's one of the things people tried to tell me. It's like, oh, well, it doesn't know new information. I'm like, oh, I'm asking it stuff that it should have known from 2006. Like, and it still can't get it right. And I've done the loop where I've corrected it. It's admitted that it was wrong. And then we'll ask a couple more questions. And then I'll loop back to something related to that. And then it goes back to giving me the wrong information. And I'm like, but we just did this. Like, how did you? That was 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
How do you
Or
not
it'll spit
learn?
out information that is, factually correct, but functionally useless. Like I asked earlier, okay, hey, let's see if it can do Madden video ideas. And one of them was, oh, you would get more views if you played Madden with NFL superstars. Yeah, you're correct. That
Yeah.
that is technically true. Do you have Dak Prescott's phone number, robot?
Yeah, for real.
No? Then
You know what you do?
thanks for
You
nothing.
you clap your hands and Pat Mahone shows up and gives you that discount double check. And then you get to
Right?
play Madden, right? That's how it works with the State Farm,
Yeah.
right? You got like a good neighbor, and then poof, he's there with Jake from State Farm. Like
There
that's
you
how it
go.
works. But yeah, it's just weird, that we were building it up to be this thing, and then it just never got there. And now everybody's working on some level of AI. Now, I will admit some of the other AIs are not great either. I'm sure we've all seen them as it
Yeah.
like you used to click a little button to get help from somebody on the website. Now you got to go through the AI steps first, and the AI is garbage. So you can just talk to a human. Like,
Yeah.
so a lot of people have some bad AI on their sites too. We are not there, but I think eventually, yes, this will still be a very important thing. I just wanted to mention it because OpenAI being $5 billion in debt, effectively in what's like 3 years, really,
Yeah.
from whenever we were like, oh, this is going to be a thing, and people were talking about it, integrating it. People were starting to pop up with all their different artwork stuff, which isn't directly related to that, but just all those conversations around AI for us to find out all these AI companies are actually struggling a lot now
Yeah.
after having hundreds of millions of dollars invested in them. That's the other thing.
Yeah, we spent in their case $5 billion, and the best use of it so far is making Plankton sing, your favorite pop songs. That's not a good
Yeah.
return on the investment for whoever's footing the bill up top.
Yeah, I don't know what the next steps are, to be honest. I don't even know, because and this is crazy because didn't OpenAI with ChatGPT sign a deal with Microsoft to be included in Bing or something last year?
They may have, but again, in Bing is pretty much a colossal failure.
Well,
So
that's true. Bing is not as nowhere near
that's
what it.
that's like, hey, did you hear they bought a seat on the Titanic last year?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, like, I'm sure Microsoft paid something for that. So, like, even with all that, they're
Yeah.
still having money issues. So, yeah, I don't know. That's weird. But all right, moving on to something else. This is another WotC thing it's small, but I'm questioning why. But I thought it was worth mentioning that recently it was pointed out that in upcoming versions of D&D stuff, the digital content team credits have been removed from those books and documents. And at first I was kind of like, well, that's not really a big thing either direction. So what's the point of removing it? Right? Because if nothing else, it at least says, hey, these are the people that helped us get our content ready for online. I'm assuming for like D&D Beyond, all that type of stuff. It only really matters to people in the industry. Mostly because those people can then point back and say, hey, I have a credit here. I did some work. So it's quickly verifiable, basically. But why would you remove that? Right? Because it's not like it cost you anything to have, I'm
Yeah.
assuming, what was 5 or 10 names just in there. Right? It's not like your customers are going to be hurt or care. The only thing I could come to was literally the same assumption you had, was maybe there's a legal thing with somebody on that team or in that group that they can't talk about.
Yeah, and if that's the case, I guess we'll probably find that out soon enough.
Yeah, because otherwise, like, this is just a weird decision that makes no sense. Because, like,
Yeah, because you want to give people credit for their work. It's
yeah, exactly.
the audit's face. That's not a controversial thing. So if something sums up, we just don't know what, but we'll keep following it, and if we find out what's going
Yeah,
on, we'll let you know.
and
Because at some point, I think we will. But
to my understanding, it's not like you're going to pay them anymore either. That work's already done. So they've been paid for whatever contract or labor they gave or whatever. So that's done. So there's no financial loss to Wizards to keep those names included. It's literally just goodwill, good faith. Hey, thanks for helping us out for doing this thing. We're making sure your name's in the credits. I mean, technically, I have playtest credits on the Betrayal at House on the Hill D&D version or whatever, but like it would be weird for them to take off the names of all the people that helped playtest it. Like, and again, I'm not making anything because my name's on there. So it's not like, again, it doesn't cost them anything to keep the names of all the people on there who help playtest it. So that's just kind of weird to remove that stuff. So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. Like I said, I don't know why. People ask me, like, what do I think? It's like, that's all I got. Is maybe it's a legal thing. Or realistically possible that whoever was putting the documents together, checked all the names they're supposed to together, they just didn't know or didn't think about the digital content team or whatever, got overlooked, and we'll see it added later. I guess that's
Could
another
be.
realistic
Yeah.
possibility. But it's something at least the community pointed out online, so it's like, okay, worth noting.
Yeah.
We kind of, as the professionals say, put a pin in it,
Right.
and we'll just keep eyes on it and see what's going on. But that kind of, we have a little, I thought this was going to run a little longer, but we have a little bit of time here. So this is a fun Olympic question. And this is one I don't think we know each other's answer to. So this will be an interesting one. But in the spirit of the Olympics, Brian, if you could participate in an Olympic activity, real or fake, so you could make up one if you want to,
Oh, okay.
what would you want to compete in the Olympics and why?
I mean, I guess if they ever were to add, WWE, like we talked about esports, if they, which I know is never happening, but yeah, I guess that'd be because I have no actual athletic abilities, so
Yeah,
it
I
would have
don't
to be
know.
some kind of video game or card game.
Yeah, I would think that would be the obvious one for me, some gaming thing to be, whether it's a board game, card game, whatever. Like that would probably be a thing. Like if I had to pick an actual sport, I feel like because I did track and I tried a lot of different things, I know what I'm not good at. So like I would like to be good at pole vault so I could do that, cuz like that was one of the scariest activities I think I ever tried to learn.
Yeah, it looks scary.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's the only way I can describe it is you have to be all in when you
Yeah,
go for it. But you're also taught that, like, hey, if you feel it not going, like, you're not, you have to learn to let go so you can still land safely. Right. Like
right.
there's a thing in your head that you have to say, like, no, it's safer to not keep going. Right. Otherwise, you hold on the pole, you're probably gonna come back and just bust your ass on the mat. And like that's
Yeah,
terrible. So yeah, and I've seen some crazy, I've seen pole snap, which was scary. I've seen that happen to somebody. So
yeah,
like, yeah, if I could get good at that, I think I would do it. Just because I feel if I could master that, I'd feel like I'd really done something athletically of just like figured it out. But yeah, I did it for a little bit and gave it up because I was like, yeah, I'm at the time mentally I was not built for that. I just knew I couldn't do it. But all that being said, why don't you show everybody where they can find you on the social media machines, buddy?
right. I am on Twitter, YouTube as Brian Tonic, and I'm writing over at Game Sided. So I'm over there doing EA Sports college football. They'll
Shoot,
probably change the name again this time next year.
that's got to be
Madden's
keeping you tons busy, dude. As much
right.
stuff is out there with that thing right now.
Yep. And then of course Madden's going to launch here real soon, and
Yeah,
this is
that's
the busy
what, two
time for me,
weeks, something
right?
like
And
that.
then in September, NBA. So this is the part where all the sports games drop, and then keep us busy for probably through Christmas at least.
Yep, I feel you. Yeah, y'all can find me at the usual places at PowrDragn, PowrDragn. I will tell you, if you want some Bloomborough content, I got tons on the YouTube channel, so you should come by and hang out. But as always, wherever you are watching or listening, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Please remember to take care of yourselves and your family. Remember to be awesome, and most importantly, be awesome to each other.